You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's The Americans After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's The Americans After Show.
I like the dance. Yeah. Nice intro.
Going for it. We should learn an 80s dance.
We should. It's 80s and Russian. Bing is for doing, and we are here doing another episode of The Americans here at AfterBuzz TV for you. This is episode 4, called In Control, from season 1. This show just keeps getting better.
Should we say who we are? Who are you?
Yes, I am Lauren Leonelli.
Who are you?
I am Jenifer Golden.
Who are you?
I'm Joe Braswell.
I literally just came in here. I don't know these people. I'm Roth Cornet, an editor at IGN Entertainment.
Well, we're glad to have the band back together. We kind of started us three, Jen and Roth and I.
Right.
And we have our lovely, lovely addition here, Joe, and now we're all together.
Yep.
This
You
is
three.
where it stops getting polite.
Us three, and now we're all
Starts getting
together.
real.
That's right.
Starts getting real.
When someone's missing, it's like, what are you doing, spying or something?
Well,
Right.
that's what Roth was doing. I mean,
It's fine.
she can't talk about
I was
it,
back
but
in Mother Russia.
that's what we figured.
Hey,
But as I was saying, this show just keeps getting better.
it does.
It does.
Yep.
Isn't it amazing? You guys love it. I wasn't with you the last couple of weeks, so I'm so excited. Did you escalate? Did you love it more and more each time?
Yeah, I did.
Absolutely.
Well, last week we talked a lot about the dynamic of it being a really good sort of relationship drama on one hand and a really good spy thriller action. So I really appreciate both, and it's well acted, well directed. The spy stuff is amazing. I love it. It's really amazing. We've talked about it over and over again, but seeing people spy in the 80s using 80s devices, codes and dead drops and,
Transmitters.
And those
Transmitters
special
and-
potions to like figure out what the code really said, dip the paper
ads
in.
in the classifieds, all that stuff is
Oh my
amazing.
gosh.
Isn't that so fun?
It's cool. And then to see this whole very complex relationship drama play out between Elizabeth and Philip is also remarkable.
yeah.
So the show is really, really complex and really well done. I love it.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we were saying too in the first episode that I think is more and more true is that it's allowed to be really fun. It's allowed to be a spy drama about real life events, but they're allowed to be really fun. Even this one, because it's with hindsight.
Right.
We know
Yes.
that Reagan was okay. We know, well, not everybody. Brady wasn't okay. He was
Right.
paralyzed, but Reagan was okay, and we know that the Cold War ended and things like that. So you wanted to set us up with some historical context about the attempted assassination of Reagan.
Well, no, yeah, we were just talking about just sort of what happened because as we were going through the episode, I think all of us were like, well, wait, what and how and what? Even I, who am probably the oldest one here.
You don't know that.
Why
I'll
would we
review
ever
that.
tell that?
I'll say yes,
Yeah,
because
well,
I'm not.
I
Why
old.
would we ever admit that if
I
we
just turned 21, so I'm assuming that you're.
I'm 16.
Well, okay, well, I'm 30. No, I wish I was. I was 10 when this happened. So, yeah, that makes me old. So I was 10 when this happened. I don't remember specifically. Yeah, that's it. That's me. But you know who's older than me? Jay-Z, LL Cool J,
That's right.
Will Smith.
That's right.
They're all 2 years older than me.
So see,
So we're all cool. We're all in the same sentence.
That's
No, I'm
right.
kidding. So anyway, no. So back then, the thing was that Reagan got shot, and it was chaos for a moment because Reagan was shot. With him was the next in line is George Bush Sr. who
Right.
was
On a plane.
on a plane in the air, and the next in line after that would be the Speaker of the House, who was shot
Right.
at the time. So the next in line presumably would be the Secretary of. I'm sorry. The
Secretary of State,
Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Yes.
who
Secretary of State,
basically said, I'm in charge.
who grabbed the mic and said, "I'm in charge. I'm running this bitch."
Yeah.
Which is what he said, which freaked everyone out.
and
Alexander
then he
Haig.
said, "Word" after he said
Right.
that.
Word. war.
And isn't he? He was ex-military, right? He's a
Yeah,
I believe he
general.
was, and then but I think the other thing too is that this was only 64 days into Reagan's presidency,
Right.
And we were like the U.S. was just coming out pretty recently from the Iran-Contra, and I think that and the hostage crisis,
Right.
And everyone was really on edge, and it's in the middle of the Cold War. It's a very heightened situation,
Right.
And I think that what Nina said that was so cool and so true, and of course they harken back to the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, this one little thing that sets off a world war.
Right.
Any little mistake and that's it, and that's
Yeah.
what he gets. And what's so cool,
yeah.
they bring the relationship drama in because he gets it. She doesn't
She
get
doesn't. She's just ready to pounce on anything. Like, I think that her laser beam focus is sometimes a fault. Like, she's very highly trained and she's really like eyes on the prize. Like we talked about before, she basically had kids to make this plan to bring it all to fruition. I think that there comes a point in time though when her level of focus becomes irrational almost. And in this situation, that's what happened.
Yeah, what's interesting is the flashbacks to her mom and everything about her saying, don't rely on anyone else. You can only rely on yourself. The interesting thing is she doesn't rely on other people. She relies on a country of people. And people that she really can't trust because everybody's a spy and lies and has fake names and this Claudia woman. And there's so many lies that she actually is trusting that it's interesting because that's her Achilles heel.
Exactly.
Is trusting the wrong people when she
Right.
should be trusting her husband, Philip.
She's learning.
She's learning slowly.
Well, I think that she's driven by her ideology. I mean, she's entirely devoted to it. And I think what's cool about that contrast is you have this person on the one side that you hope are going to be the people in these positions that his ultimate goal is like, let's not have war if we can
Right.
avoid it. Why do you want everyone to die for no good reason?
Which was a great, sorry to
Yeah.
interject, but
No,
that was
go ahead.
great that he said that because
Yeah.
she's just all about like, let's do this. Come on, let's get the gun. Let's go. We're setting up for Operation Christopher. Bam, bam, bam. And he's like, hold
Well,
on
she's
here.
about the job. I mean, she's
Yeah.
she's a soldier, so she's about. I have my orders. This is what it is.
He looks
She's
at
not
the
really-
big,
right.
He looks at the big picture. She's like I said, the laser beam focus. It's becoming like a negative fault of almost. I mean, she's
Yeah.
like a highly trained spy, which is great, but he's looking at the big picture. Like, look, we've got children. We are in America. Like, let's try and prevent
But
this.
he's looking at the big picture. I mean, he gets the fact that they don't have everything under control.
Well, that too, yeah.
That it's going to be so easy because the technology really isn't there the way it is now. It's going to be so easy to misinterpret these events and
Yeah.
land them in the middle of World War
Well,
III.
Another thing there is, talking about there's a change that's happening too in terms of what the way they're spying. I mean, this is what we're seeing. Like a colleague of mine, Andy Greenwald, was talking about this before. Like, before the spying was all about, from the 60s and 40s, it was all about like real espionage type things. And like you see a little bit of that when they kidnapped the maid, when it's like, we have this poison, we've injected it in you, all that stuff. Really, all they had to do was hold a pillow over the dude's head
The whole time, yeah.
But they had this eloquent plan of how to do it, and then I think they're sort of seeing that the way you spy and the way things are sort of changing. And say all that to say that Philip is starting to realize that, and Elizabeth isn't. Elizabeth's like, we have our orders, we have to get the guns, we're doing the thing, this is what it is. And he's like, well, maybe there's some nuanced way to go about this here. And
There's,
our,
a lot of gray.
There's a lot of
our
gray.
job is to sort of evaluate on the ground and not just be soldiers.
Right. What does that mean? I don't know what that bell
We
meant.
were like on the same page. I think that's what
That
was.
was what that meant.
So-
But
Yeah.
so going back to what you guys were saying about how the Speaker of the House, right? He was saying that Haig.
Secretary of State.
Secretary of State, sorry, Secretary of
Alexander
State.
Haig.
Right. How he was saying, I'm in control. On the flip side to that, it's like, good, somebody is, thank God, because everybody else is not here.
Well, we're also speaking about this, and back to the historical recap, which
Right.
you can elaborate on more, is that that's sort of what the chain of command sort of happens when something like this goes on. This person's in charge, but if this person's not there, this person's in
Right.
charge, almost just so that there's not a
Chaos.
moment of
Right.
nobody in charge, because like in a place like Russia where something like that would happen, it would just people would take over, like a general, for example.
Well, they talked about this. They made reference to it twice in the episode. They talked about Stalin. When they talked about when Elizabeth was a little girl, and when Stalin passed, and things were uncertain there. But Philip made reference to it too, saying like when our leaders died, our last 2 leaders died, no one said anything for like 2 weeks.
And they
like and so behind the scenes, generals are making plays, people are making plays. There's power plays.
Other countries still do that to this day.
Exactly, but it's not like that here.
Yeah.
But the Russians don't know that.
But that's the thing is that there is a reason that, and I think that's what Nina was there to elaborate on too. There's a reason that they think that this would mean a coup. If the Secretary of State is coming in and saying, I'm in control, there's a reason that they would interpret that to mean, okay, we're in a coup. I thought it was interesting that they had this whole Operation Christopher in place. But also, just really to be fair to Elizabeth for a second, I mean, there is something to be said for the man on the wall. You know what I mean? There is something to be said for that person. I mean, there is something to be said for that person that doesn't hesitate. Now, we're looking at it like we're Americans, that's the enemy, right? But she's still, if it was the opposite situation and she was fighting for us, she's still, there's something to be said for that person that doesn't hesitate.
Yeah.
However, shooting this poor cop in the head.
That was crazy. We actually have a caller.
Oh, do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone's going to correct our history right now. There you go.
I don't think so. I think we were pretty on point about the history, y'all.
Okay.
Verse 7.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome to AfterBuzz TV. Who are we talking to? Hello.
Hello.
Nobody's there. Martin.
Nobody home.
Hello.
Caller, this is the part where you talk. Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Oh,
I'm
no.
sorry. Try us again, though, or tweet at us.
Yeah, try us again if that was like some sort of misconnection. But yeah, oh my gosh, I want to. Is somebody saying something that's wrong here?
I don't think so.
Maybe
but
it's not a correction,
Why
but
are we assuming that?
No.
That was
Just
me. I was
making a
saying
joke.
that.
In any event, I think that for Elizabeth, she isn't all bad, and I think that one of the things that she said that struck me was, "Don't you remember when it was about something more than just being?" I think that the thing I like about her that keeps getting repeated is that one of the problems she has is the acquisitiveness that she sees in the U.S., and that's true.
Well,
that you can't really argue that that's a reality.
Right.
And also in her in her defense,
further proof that I'm a Russian spy.
That's what she was.
She clearly relates a lot to them. So
I don't. I'm just saying. I think that we can't make her entirely the bad guy.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Even although when she killed that guy, I felt a little differently about it.
Well, hold on, but at the same time, I sort of, to interject, she's there and she's like, "Oh, officer," playing the helpless woman. I feel like because we're watching the story through their eyes, in those moments, you're like, oh, shoot, I don't want her to die, and I don't want Philip to die. So I'm like, how's she going to get out of it? When she shot the security guard, I was like, oh, snap, that was cray. She just shot him in the head. At the same time, I'm not like,
he was a
thinking
sweet guy
she's bad.
too.
I wasn't thinking. I mean, shoot, I don't want her to die.
Yeah. Well, God forbid we think of the Russian spies trying to take down America as bad guys. But,
I know, right? But we have hindsight. We have hindsight.
But I mean, I think that's fair. Of course we do, because we're Americans and we were very much raised that way.
Right.
I mean, we were indoctrinated that way, but so were they.
Yeah.
But by the way,
The opposite.
they're also sitting in a van with a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
So they killed the one guy they killed the one guy that was in their way to do nothing.
Well, to prevent them from getting caught.
Right, but at the same time, they weren't gonna do anything, and if they did, that would have been maybe a war that started. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I mean, I'm with
it's
you.
a life that didn't necessarily need to be.
Oh, of course not. But I wasn't, to finish what I was saying, I wasn't like, oh, well, they're the Russian spies, so I hope the cops come and get them.
Right.
You're emotionally attached to these people, and you couldn't be unless they had that B storyline going the whole time of their relationship, which is why it's there.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm like, no, don't. Oh, gosh, you got to get out of this somehow, even though they're the Russians.
I kind of still want them to not be so violent. Like, I get that you're a spy. Let's just be like intel spies. Let's not be killer spies.
Gotta do what you gotta do.
Make it, I think it's a cool thing because it's a very real thing, and I'm sure it was a very real part of that reality, and it still is to this day on both sides. And it's one of those things where you are connecting with this person, and now it's more difficult to, which I think is a cool thing.
Yeah.
Well, I talked about last week about the storytelling here. Like, we're talking about maybe this is the new way to tell stories, which as opposed to you're following them as protagonists, but it's really not about the good guys or the bad guys. We're following the FBI, we're following the Russians, but it's really just we're telling this one big long story, and this is what's happening along the line. So there is no really good guys or bad guys. We're kind of just watching this, real time, and so there's that. Also, I think that in Elizabeth's defense, if we're defending her, like she's not really doing anything wrong. She's doing her job. She's really, really, really good at being a spy.
Exactly.
She's a great spy. Like she can kick ass. She takes orders. She knows what she's doing. And frankly, Philip is really good at being a spy.
Yeah,
they just do it different. They just do it different approaches. So neither of them are wrong, and that's probably why they work well together. So yin yang.
Keeping it real, though, we love Philip.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We do. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I
In
love
all
him.
reality, we still love Philip.
I would assume, though, that to be a good spy, you should probably be an all-around good spy, not just be excellent at making rash decisions
Well,
or
you
like
never-
going into like action really quickly.
But I think you never know. They could have been purposely put together as a team for that exact reason.
right.
Or they could just work on their own.
Yeah.
So
And they do sometimes work on their own, which we saw in this episode as well.
But think of it again. Pretend that Philip and Elizabeth were American spies in a different country. Pretend that for a second and think about the guy. Which one of them would you think is the loose cannon when the guy is thinking betraying his country, and that's us?
Right.
Which one of them is the loose cannon then? Well, then because it's just perspective switch.
Yeah.
In that
Exactly. They just
situation,
happen to be.
we
That's why
think
the show's
he's
so
the loose
good.
cannon.
That's why the show is so good, because it puts us in, like, if this show were about a sleeper cell that were two Al Qaeda sleeper cells, we wouldn't be as sympathetic.
We couldn't watch. I don't think we could watch it. Yeah.
But if it's about
Too soon.
too soon.
Well, too now.
Well,
Right.
that's-
Exactly.
But wait, though, but that's kind of why Homeland works, because you've got this guy that we compare the show to all the time that you don't know. I mean, you watch him flip-flop, like, between being emotionally
Brody.
attached to being emotionally attached to America, and because he's from America and he was a SEAL and whatever, and then his whatever happened to him when he was captured.
A lot.
And you watch him sort of flip-flop. You wouldn't be able, if you knew he was just one thing, you wouldn't care as much. So I think that's why it works to have them flip-flopping here in this show, because you're like,
yes, but I think that the conceit that works about Homeland is, again, that Brody was a Marine, was tortured for several years. There are things that are inherently going to make us sympathetic towards Brody, where I think it would be more difficult, if we didn't have that kind of entryway into his perspective,
Right.
And to be sympathetic towards him. Like this again, we have the distance of time, that allows us.
and hindsight, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Time, hindsight, and she's hot, he's hot. It's the 80s.
They're really charming. It's the
They
80s.
are.
It's fun. I mean, there's something.
Their disguises, I'm sorry.
Their disguises are fun.
Kill me. They every time we're like, who are these new characters?
She puts on a trench coat and an awful wig.
It has like a little Mr. and Mrs. Smith thing going on in that way, where it's just really it's more lighthearted in that way than Homeland, where you're like,
She's not fooling anyone in that way.
Homeland,
no, she's not.
Homeland, we don't have the hindsight. Like, we don't know, this is all kind of currently happening, so we don't know what's next. This, we know the end game, we know, so we're like, okay, we can let loose and have fun. It helps that it's in the 80s because the costumes and the music and the cars, and we're kind of laughing about, like, oh, geez, they better get on their iPhone, they better check the internet and see what's going on now. Like,
which
they
isn't
don't
available.
Right.
It's really interesting to see these different ways. I'm really interested in the way that people are telling stories nowadays. I keep going back to that, but this device of having hindsight and we know, like, a real life event. We know what happened with Reagan. We know that it's only in one day, but it really brought us back to that day, because in that 12 hours, we know no one knew what the hell was going on. And it was really a short amount of time where. President shot. This person's dead. Bush is in the air. He's like, I'm in control. You're in control. Like, it was such a panic moment.
Right.
And so we felt that through there. But the story of telling about being about history in your rearview mirror, people criticize it with the newsroom.
Sure.
I know the show people criticize it because they're using it a year ago, and you're kind of able to rewrite history in the way people kind of didn't like that. But
And
here,
you're able to say this is what should have happened.
this is what should have happened.
Yeah.
But this is a really great way to tell a story.
I think what's cool about this episode too is, like, like, this is what could have happened
Right.
that day if things had gone just a little bit
Yeah.
to the,
In a
to the
matter
left,
of
sideways.
hours.
Yeah, exactly.
In a matter of hours. Like,
Because there were absolutely spies doing what they were doing back
I'm
then.
sure.
oh, yeah,
Sure.
we know there were.
Right. I would
sure.
love to know who was the one to be like, no, probably not.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
not tell them that one.
Well, I mean, we don't know that this exact situation would have happened, but I thought what was cool with the whole Operation Christopher thing is like suddenly it could have been like Red Dawn up in this business
Right.
and like
I
a
know.
full-on hostile takeover. I don't think, to be honest, I just don't think that it would have escalated to nuclear war like that if that had happened. And the
I don't
truth
know.
is,
I
like,
don't know either.
There would be no uprising inside.
I remember the 80s.
inside the United States.
I remember the 80s. I remember being terrified of nuclear war every day. I remember
Yeah.
being literally like the day after that movie. There was a movie called The Day After that came on. I was literally scared of nuclear war all the time. So
Well,
I don't know.
Reagan. I mean, Reagan was scared of. I mean, I've read different accounts of Reagan, but you know how she's like, Reagan's so crazy. Like, do you hear the things that they say about us? Blah 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 blah. What's so cool about that is that I've read that he was doing that. He was terrified of nuclear war, and so his plan was like, what he wanted to do was make the other side think that he was more insane than them, and that at any given minute he would
could-
hit that button because he felt like if they thought he was insane and out of control, it would keep them in check
Right.
and help to resolve the Cold War faster. And so I think it's really interesting because her
love that
perspective,
tactic.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
I'm
I've
gonna
read
use
that.
that on
I don't.
Be
I don't
Crazier.
know if that's. I've read that.
what am I do?
And so what's really interesting is from her perspective, she's like, this guy is insane because he did sound insane. Like if you go back and you read some of the stuff, you're like, he's gonna go to war any second, you know?
Right.
Right.
But he said that was just his like they are now saying, and who knows if this is revisionist history or whatever, that was his tactic because he was terrified of nuclear war and wanted to.
I would say his
It feels
temperament seemed a little bit
revisionist.
more terrorist. I mean, not terrorist, terrified. Sorry, not
Yeah.
terrorist at all.
Right.
Oh boy, edit that one out. He seemed a little bit more terrified than.
I have no. I mean, this isn't to say that Reagan was a good or bad president. I just think that if that was the tactic, it worked.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I just think that like when both sides, I guess we'll get into this second right now, but both sides were very, very nervous about the notion that we're one step away from having missiles flying. And I think that if in fact
They were scared enough to have spies over here,
Yeah.
so.
Well, but
hey.
if in fact it turned out.
we had some folks over there too.
But
I'm
the
sure.
reality is, the
Yeah.
reality was at that time, if it did in fact turn out that it wasn't John Hinckley who was in love with Jodie Foster and it was
Right.
a KGB agent that
Well, yeah, elaborate on that a little because that
Crazy John Hinckley.
A lot of
What a
people
bizarre
don't know.
story.
I know, right? I think that's so weird, and I always felt like, God, did Jodie Foster feel bad about that?
Responsible.
I just want to ask Martin, did we get that caller back or no? Are we?
No, they haven't called back.
And why don't you do me a
Why
favor and
don't
turn
you-
the air on for me, sweetheart?
yeah,
It's a little hot. in
yeah,
here.
I know.
Thank you.
I'm on it.
Why don't you tweet at us?
Yeah,
too,
I want to
caller?
know what that was. Like, well, whatever.
In any event.
Try.
It was a spy trying to get a message across.
Probably.
I
Oh
hope
my
so.
God.
Maybe that was our one oh maybe we should leave the building.
But can we
well, yeah. So
elaborate on the Jodie Foster?
well, it turned out, that the guy who did try to make the assassination attempt on Reagan was this crazy guy named John Hinckley, and the reason why he did it was he was trying to impress the person who he's in love with and stalking, actually, Jodie Foster.
And it's because he watched Taxi Driver. He watched Taxi Driver, which
Yes.
Jodie Foster was in when she was very young. I think he watched it like 15 times
Yeah.
in the theater or something
Yeah.
like that in the first month that it was
Just
out.
super
Scary.
creepy 'cause she was young.
Yeah, she
Yes,
was
she was
playing.
young.
She was
Yeah.
playing a child prostitute,
Yeah.
and the thing is that in Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro's character Travis Bickle was trying to assassinate a man who was running for president, and so this was his
Sybil
attempt.
Shepherd's office.
So this was his attempt to get her attention by somehow reenacting
this
Taxi Driver.
That totally makes sense because if a guy ever did that for me, I'd be like, and let's get married.
Right.
Right, obviously.
As you do. Yeah.
and I'll visit you in jail. Totally,
He's committed.
totally fine.
He's into you. There's no doubt that he's not into you. Yeah.
No doubt.
And may not off you at any given time.
I mean, he'll get it done. He'll get you that Caesar dressing if the waiter didn't bring it. He'll make sure it happens.
And if somebody even looks twice at you.
Yeah.
Right. It's over.
Love it. So hot. so hot right now.
But if it wasn't John Hinckley, and if it was a KGB agent, then it would be a complete act of war. And then if it got out that the KGB, Russia assassinated our president, missiles would be flying.
Oh, it would be done.
Which, by the way, that's what I was saying.
Missiles would be flying.
Right. That's what I was saying when they killed the security guard. I was like, and no one's gonna be like, who killed the security guard outside of this man's house?
I don't think they're going to jump to Russian spies, though.
No.
I don't. I really don't.
Well, they also got rid of him. So.
Especially
Yeah,
since
that's true. They got rid of the
They
bottom.
got rid of him, but especially since they alluded to a lot of burglary and crime happening in
yeah,
that
that's good.
area, it would have just probably
Yeah.
been
No, they
handed off
did.
to that. You know,
And Philip
Oh,
actually
so
made
sad.
Philip made a reference to that. He said something to the effect of, we may have committed their first act of war here. We fired their first shot.
Yeah,
exactly.
He and I thought the same. So.
I think so.
I know. I love me some Philip.
Yeah, he's the voice of reason. What?
Let's talk about
Yeah.
the relationship now that we're
was just
talking
gonna
about
say
Lovely.
that. Let's bring up, Philip and Elizabeth, and clearly we've been battling with this from the beginning, thinking, I've always been on the side of Elizabeth just does not really care about him, and she's not into him at all. And he, we saw from that very first scene where they came to the hotel from Russia, and he kind of like
With love.
put a move on her, and she was like, whoa, hey. I felt like ever since then, he's been more into her than she was into him, except until the last 2
And
episodes.
Who argued with you that first time on that?
Well, but
I thought she was feeling it.
I don't think she was until recently.
She totally was.
I agree.
No, you're all
I
wrong.
agree.
I swear you're all wrong because
It's only when somebody kills for her is when she looks twice
But
at you.
it's true. I'm serious.
She would if Philip killed Reagan for her, like how Hinckley was going to kill Reagan for Jodie Foster.
I
different story.
I think we're talking about something else. But I honestly think, because if you remember, they made a big point out of Elizabeth saying on that tape, "Can you act a little bit stronger? Can you be a little bit stronger?" The problem that she had with the American citizens was that she felt they were weak. This is a very tough woman. She is an alpha female by a lot.
Yeah.
And a woman like that needs an extremely alpha male. And it wasn't till that moment that he straight out took him out because of what he had done to her. He took care of it. She wanted him after that. She felt it.
or whatever his name was.
Yeah.
Captain. This is what I
No,
say.
it could have been, and they ended up hooking up in the car after that.
Yeah.
So one could argue your stance, which is a valid point. I'm just saying, on the flip side, another valid side of the argument is that she, at that point, could have just been having sex with him in the car to keep him from defecting. At that point, because I still felt. Watching her just as an actress and making subtle choices in her eyes and things that she was doing, I wasn't reading that more vulnerable. I'm kind of feeling a little bit more attached to you, or I'm liking you more. Now we're starting to see in the last 2 episodes different looks in her eyes. Her touching his hand. She's making the first move, and in a different
girlier.
way.
Like when you see her with him, she's a little bit like.
Definitely
I think
softer,
the actress is
definitely.
Doe-eyed a little.
So I think. At first, it could have been a tactic, possibly, and since they also would refer to women being able to use their sexuality to get things, as opposed to the men being able to use their strength.
And their sexuality. He has some sex too with the ladies.
Oh,
when
yeah.
he's trying to work them over.
Yeah.
For sure, but
Yeah.
I mean, a woman I think, has a little more power sexually and less physically.
Men
sometimes
say it's always up to the woman.
So I think that they're encouraged to use that, and I think my argument is that in that instance, in the beginning, she would use her sex to maybe help him from not defecting at that point. Now, I think it's a different story.
I do think I agree with that, because you see her now getting a little bit more physical with him, and then that scene where they went to the hotel. It was a struggle for her to let down her guard and actually give in to doing it for
Fun.
Be
right, for fun,
vulnerable.
because it wasn't for answers or intelligence or job kind of thing. And
Yeah, I
she
mean-
looked uncomfortable, but or maybe scared even, because it was about her heart versus a goal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
I think that must be really hard. She's been raped.
Yeah.
She's essentially in one way or another been kind of a prostitute, in the sense that she's had to use her sexuality for a goal. I think that for that person, especially as tough as she is, it's probably really hard to be vulnerable and actually be intimate.
I wonder, we've seen a lot. We're seeing
Although we met her boyfriend.
we her boyfriend, Derek Luke. We seem to be sort of peeling back the layers of Elizabeth more and more, through flashbacks and everything else. I feel like we're getting to know more and and more about why she is the way she is. And I wonder if we'll get some of that of Philip as well.
Hope so.
We haven't really had many Philip flashbacks.
No.
Philip, I
Philip is a
think
bit of an
why they're,
enigma.
I think, and you're absolutely right. I think why they're choosing to do that with Kerry Russell's character is because she was so closed off and cold, and Philip was much more of an open book. I mean,
Right.
from the beginning, I thought I could tell, okay, he kind of likes her. He's sort of assimilating to the American culture.
Sure.
He loves his kids.
He loves his kids. He kind of likes America. He likes to play sports. He was a lot more of an open book, and she wasn't. So I think maybe they need to let you in to her emotionally, because, and that's through flashbacks and things like that, because she's not gonna just open up right away. As we can see, it's hard for her to do that.
Yeah.
But I think eventually, yeah, there's got to be some stuff that Philip went through too.
And we're seeing, I think what we're seeing with Philip is, back to how they both approach this job. Philip is, taking this more intellectual approach of like, well, these are all just people. Like, they're people in Russia and they're people here in America. They're crazy. They're crazy. Let's try to intellectualize this whole thing and see what's going
Exactly.
on. Whereas Kerry Russell's like, no, they're the bad guys. They're evil. They want to kill us. They're evil. Don't you know they're evil? So
Yeah.
she's a real ideologue in that sense. And he's more of an intellectual.
Yeah,
you hit
the nail on the head.
That's kind of interesting.
And his
there.
priority is the family.
Yeah, and of course there's
Totally.
a family in there. But just to settle this thing between you guys, and we'll get my final word on this is, I think you're both right. I think that it's a progression. I think it's a progression. I think that she definitely was not feeling Philip at all. The car thing helped. I mean not the car, but her the thing in the car.
The car sex.
The
car
whole
sex.
murder and car sex helped.
The murder car sex. But I think she was. I think she's
Crazy.
probably 50%. Well, I'm going to say she's 50% trying to keep him there, but 50% starting to feel him as well. But
I think so.
obviously, these last 2 episodes, she's seeing him in a different light.
Totally.
Because he is truly being that strong guy who she wants him to be, especially today.
Yeah.
Like, she's seeing him and he told her
And he was right. We're going to do it my way.
She's
And he
like,
was
"Oh."
right.
Right. He put his foot down.
And then she had sex with him
Right.
the next
Oh, yeah.
scene.
Straight to the
Because
bedroom.
Which we knew that she would
Yeah.
do.
Because I think she looked at her kids. I think she came out in
That's
that
her.
moment, and when her son was like, "When did all of these millions of people die?" And she realized that she could inadvertently or not
Right.
be responsible for millions of people dying, maybe even her children. I think that's when she realized that he was right, saw his
Yes.
point of
Right.
view, and really is starting to see him for the man that he is, which is kind of an extraordinary man.
Yeah.
She was 22, forced with him. She never dated anybody else. I mean, I thought what was
Right.
cool about the affair was that it revealed just
Yes.
how deep where Philip is coming from is, and
Right.
how hurt he was by that, because he's never done that, never lied.
Yep.
And it forced her, it humanized her by revealing that she did have an intimate relationship with
course.
That
someone.
she's capable of it,
that
yeah.
she's capable of it. And it forced her to being truthful, because he basically was like, fine, I'm done with you. Forced her to actually get real and intimate with him,
Right.
which escalated the relationship. In
Right.
that moment when she explained herself, I came here, I was with you, it was never that between us.
Right.
Yeah.
And she forced him to admit that.
Well, she tried to make up for it at the beginning of this episode. It was her idea to go on the little getaway. The little getaway was her idea. So,
Cute.
Cute.
We talked about that, just to tail end that conversation last time. We talked about her, basically repeating what you just said. She was not feeling it, and then what? I don't know. I think I agree with you on where the story is going. I think just maybe not where it was
I
starting.
think what's going to be interesting and cool about the show is that it seems like it's really going to, in a kind of like, I don't know if the word is mature, but real way, develop this relationship. And that they're
just
really,
starting out late in the
They're
relationship.
starting out late in it
Of
to actually
course,
connect and
yeah.
have the romance, but it's really going to develop it. I think we're going to get really invested, and then some kind of political event is going to come and throw a wrench in
rip
the
them
whole
Right.
apart.
thing.
Like we see them bicker and fight about things, and obviously, they take their work home with them.
Of course.
And that's why they
live
say
it,
don't
yeah.
mix business and pleasure because of that. And that's why don't talk politics with people that you love. And,
Yeah.
they're doing all of those things.
Of
Right.
course.
So it's tricky. You know what I'd love to see, though? I would love to see some of their training.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
see more of that.
Right.
we got a little bit of that with flashback with Elizabeth, and
I know, but I want to
rape
see
scene.
more, right?
Like how
more
they
too,
lose their
yeah.
accent, like how they become such great actors. Where do they come up with these? Like they just have a script they come up with out of nowhere. They're great
And
improv
where do they
actors.
get these great disguises?
Well, obviously the wig store down the street.
But I think it's funny that they do. You're right. They come, in this episode, they walked up to that nurse and they had the whole, and then they gave her the little pin. I mean, they were like, bam, bam, bam.
They had the government car. They had.
I mean,
all they said to us was, "We need a government car." We're like, "Whoa, bam!"
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're like, "Hi, my name is this and this, and his name is this and this, and we just da da da." And it was like all just to get her to say. That's all of that, just to get her to say, nope, he's fine. And then they're like, oh, let's go translate.
I mean,
this
can you imagine how crucial that one little moment is, in that story? Like the nurse just going, yeah, it's all good.
It's back to what I like and I love about the show, the spy stuff. They like the intelligence gathering is a real intelligence gathering.
Yeah, those tiny little moments.
Yeah, what do we have to do? Let's go find the nurse.
And then when she drove across, when she drove, the tiny moment made me think of that, when she drove across the bridge and just reached out her hand and grabbed whatever that was stuck to the.
Yeah.
It's like you blink and you miss it, but it's like all very relevant.
She's like, yep, it's still on.
There it is.
Get our targets.
And that's,
like,
I mean, you have to think that's who you would be targeting is like he does, the secretary and the assistant and the person that doesn't think that they're important enough to spill the beans on anything big, but they are because they pick things up. And that's what's really interesting, because the person that really does have all of the information knows they have it and they're not going to give it up unless you're giving them a blowjob like an episode.
This is also really interesting that they are. I'm assuming yes, they're given like certain commands that they need to do, or okay, go do this, go do that. But also, I feel like that meeting with that nurse, that was just them. Like, all right, let's tap our resources. How do we figure out who do we go to? Okay, this is the nurse that was on, that was part of the staff that was helping the president.
I would like to see some of that, like the brainstorming about the plan for the next thing.
I know. I just think it's so interesting how they come up with that.
There's really only one way they could have done it, which was to have a government car and pose as government agents.
Exactly.
And they play it off like, oh, thank you for today. And by the way, the vice president thanks you for your work today. And by the way,
here's a
how's
pin.
the president? Great.
And here's a pin.
And don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone this happened. That was great.
And I just think it's interesting to think that nobody from Russia told them to do that. They're just like, this is what we need to do.
This is the piece of information. Don't care how you get it.
Yeah.
So can we talk about? I mean, sort of intelligence gathering on that side. Let's talk about the FBI.
Yes.
The intelligence gathering on the FBI side.
You almost forget about that.
Well, because
it's a dual show.
The FBI side. I think the whole FBI side is interesting, but on the relationship tip of it, the husband and wife across the street, I think what was cool about what they introduced this week, other than that, it's like just very real, in terms of a relationship. They've just totally grown distant. He can't connect with her anymore. Is that what would it be, Philip and Elizabeth, because they are partners in spying, because I was going to say crime, because here it is a crime, because they are these partners in crime, it allows them to connect in a way that those two that drove a wedge between them, because he was off doing this undercover. He was doing the exact same thing they are, deep cover for 5 years, and it changed him.
Of course.
It made him a different human being, and it made him unavailable to his wife. It's really funny to have that parallel.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you think they're so different.
And you also think how horrible were the things that he had to do in that situation. Because wasn't he in like some crazy, what was he? He was like in a,
I don't know, where did he
was he in a gang? Not a gang, but like
he was like in a white supremacist.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So you think like whatever, and he won't talk about it.
No, he had to participate in their rituals and their things that they would do and their murders. And
he didn't like it.
I think somebody asked him in that one episode and said, like, did you have to kill people? And he was like,
no, I think the guy was like, oh, what? I think one of his colleagues was joking and said, oh, what, was it just this, that, and the other? I don't remember. And he's like, no, a little deeper than that.
Oh, yeah, that's
a little more.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a little more real than what you're talking about.
You can tell that there's some stuff brewing underneath the surface with him.
Oh, yeah.
And you really got to see in that scene with his wife.
He's great. Noah Emmerich, is that his name?
Noah Emmerich.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
It was a great this show, like we were talking about, there's so many dualities here, like between Elizabeth and Philip, and between the Americans, the FBI and the KGB, and even here it's so interesting to see. We've got all the action stuff happening, and then we've got all the emotional stuff happening, and there's always that's when the really good acting comes out. We saw that last episode with Philip and Elizabeth in the alleyway when you just brought that up, when he was, she said, he said, "You've never lied to me," and
Yeah.
all that.
Our favorite scene, great scene.
It was a great scene, and we had that again this episode.
Yes.
And it got really hectic with Elizabeth and Philip were in the van, and oh my God, here's the cops. Like your heart gets racing in those sort of like panic action moments, but then it also brings you emotionally in these great still calm scenes.
It's amazing in this giant show where the stakes are so high in the entire show. It's Russia versus America, it's spies, it's nuclear weapons, all this stuff. It's war. And the stakes are so high, but the most amazing moments, most tense moments are between Elizabeth and Philip.
Just standing there,
and just working out the inner dynamics of their own relationship.
Yeah, you almost feel like they're at war with each other sometimes.
Well, they are.
But it's like it's just that tension, to be able to do what they do in that, and
it's
also
just as intense.
Coming from different angles at it, so that and then they're in love, or are they in love? And the whole thing is that's the best part of the show to me.
Yeah, I also think what's going to be interesting about them is to see what's more important.
Right.
Yeah.
Because as their love is growing, and it seems to be quite important, especially this family little dynamic that they have going on. What's going to be more important, the cause or the family?
I mean, the big question with Elizabeth is, and I think we can kind of answer it with Philip, but not for sure yet, is she ever going to love him as much as she loves Russia? And it doesn't look like that's the answer.
I mean, I wonder if it's that. I wonder if it's that simple. I wonder, I don't think it's probably that simple for her or anybody that really has that level of commitment to whatever it is that they do. Right. I mean, and what she does, I don't know. It was weird because I was watching it and I was thinking like, there's some part of me that admires the ability to commit that deeply to what you believe is the greater good. Whether I think it's the greater good or not isn't the issue. You do. And you know what I mean?
I'm not saying that it's in her mind it's that black and white. I'm saying as the storyline or as an audience member, you wonder, is she ever going to be able to love him like she loves?
Because
with him, I would say, I mean, I think he might love her and his family and more than the cause.
He's already
there.
He's already out.
That's what I'm saying.
He's talking about defecting, and he's talking.
Yeah, the question with her is she ever going to get to that point?
I think that the only way that will happen is if her country fails her in some way or deceives her.
I think that,
and I think they will
when her kids come into play, because that's her Achilles heel.
Can we talk about Nina? Because
I'm sure you want to talk about Nina. Somebody in this room has a huge crush on Nina, and I'm not going to point that person out.
Oh, it's me.
I'm going to say,
just kidding.
Nina's a really cool character because she also serves to give that other perspective, and she kind of gave us really important information tonight too.
And she's sort of the middle. I mean, was a KGB or is or was, and now
she's almost like a double agent.
She's a double agent because we're talking about this duality here between the American and the Russian side of the show.
I didn't think she was KGB.
No, I just thought she was a Russian embassy.
She works at the embassy. And she was swindling them.
Right.
Yeah. Or she was swindling them. She got caught, so now she has to work for the FBI, and it's very dangerous. But she was never KGB.
Okay, but
I think she's just caught in a bad situation.
Yeah, but I was curious about what that exactly she was doing behind the scenes, though.
Right.
Well, where at the embassy?
Yeah, like what if she was.
Well, the thing
a spy?
No, I think at the
I don't think she'd be a spy within her own.
No, but I mean, I didn't know. I just didn't know what she was doing behind the scenes. I mean, I guess not KGB, but I just didn't know. They never really allude to exactly what she was.
Well, I think like we've said, it's a parallel. So they're going to the nurse, right? They're going to I'm going to go find the nurse. I'm going to go find the secretary that works for the FBI.
That makes sense.
And I'm going to gather this information. The FBI is doing the same thing. They're going to the person that they think is vulnerable in any part of the Russian sort of organization to try and gather information. And so they've tapped this girl to try and get information. Like, everybody wants the same question. They're like, what are the Russians doing? What are the Americans doing? Like, let's not blow up things, you know? Right. They're all trying to avoid this nuclear war. And so they're going to her like, what are you hearing? Have you heard that anyone from Russia is behind this? Or is something happening over there that we should know about?
And there was.
Well, she had minimal.
Well, the reality is,
she said she didn't think they were involved.
The Russian embassy at that time, the Russia was pretty much our enemy. So the Russian embassy at that time, everything they were talking about at that time is pretty much classified, sensitive stuff as to how we're going to deal with our enemy. And so that's why it's valuable to have her there. Even when he got shot, when Reagan got shot, they were the whole office. You saw that embassy was buzzing and trying to figure things out.
They
Staff
don't
meetings.
know.
High-level staff meetings of what are we going to do and how vulnerable are we? Is this a
Right.
coup? And so when she suggested to the head of the embassy, I guess he's the head Russian ambassador.
Yeah.
When she suggested to him that I'm going to go to this bar where the Americans hang out and try to eavesdrop and see if I can find some information out, he's like, yeah, by all means, go out. We can report. So she is sort of a de facto spy.
Yeah.
She's not a
Yeah.
spy. She's not KGB trained agent.
Right.
But she
Yeah.
is a de facto spy because she is actually going out to get intel for Russia.
That's,
Right.
yeah.
You know,
and,
so-
and it was right there for her in the
Yeah,
bar.
at the bar,
with,
they're like, "Your boss sucks."
Your boss is an idiot. It's like the
Oh.
VP and the
Right.
I know, right?
and the Secretary of State's like staff arguing with each other, which I
They
thought
just
was pretty funny.
happened to be
Because
there.
you know, well, actually, to me, I felt like that was seemingly pretty possible. You know what I mean?
could-
That
yeah, of
argument
course,
would
but-
take place.
That'd be like us going into a restaurant in LA and surprisingly someone's talking about movies or their boss who's like a celebrity or whatever
Of
it is.
course.
That was the area they were in.
It's
so.
totally plausible that
Yeah.
that could happen. Clearly, it's not like I don't, but it is.
You have a theory about her, though, don't you?
Yeah, that's my prediction. I'm saving it.
Well,
Oh, you're-
well,
okay,
just to
you're
finish
saying-
on that,
Pardon me.
I love the whole, we're getting deep into that level of mistrust. Well, first of all, again, it's a storytelling device. Nina's interesting because she gives us the FBI perspective, but she also gives us a peek inside that embassy, so we
Right.
know what they're what they're doing. This is stuff. What's happening in that embassy is stuff that that Philip and Elizabeth don't necessarily know.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
they
So it's
don't.
kind of, so
yeah.
it's kind of cool for us to be able to see inside
See
the
that-
embassy.
yeah,
see
she's-
that perspective of it as well.
She's the straddle there, which is, I
Right.
think,
Which is
good.
And we're afraid for her at the same time. Of
course.
Yeah. It's also-
Because when Stan was going to meet her and they had to walk right by each other
Yes.
because she was being tailed by her own
Right.
people. I mean, no one trusts anybody at this
Exactly.
time. It's crazy. You don't
And
trust
she
your own.
might not be KGB trained or whatever, but they both like made eye contact with each other and were like, don't do it, and walked right by.
Oh,
each
yeah,
How do you
no.
even know how to do
Yeah.
that?
But
No,
How
she,
do you
yeah,
that's
like-
what I'm saying. So there's something.
I feel like I don't know. I think I could do that. I think I could do a little.
But I mean,
You know, I think
Yeah.
anybody could pick
I think I
that,
would probably
that little
falter a
bit
little.
up.
Well, that does speak to the like you said, Jen.
I think that's just self-preservation.
Right, the paranoia of the time.
Paranoia within that's
well,
also
yeah. I mean, I don't know that if you knew that you were told by somebody who was like basically running your show all of a sudden now, you need to be here to talk to me. What would not make her just stop in front of him?
Because she understands where she is. I mean, she's a smart woman. I think it's very clear that she's an intelligent woman. She's the one that said, like, this is how it happens. One little mistake is how it happens. There's wisdom in that. I think that if you were working for an embassy in a hostile country, I think if any one of us was working in an embassy in, I could name a lot of countries right now, that would be a hostile environment for us to be working in as an American, and dangerous.
That's what Argo was about.
Potentially dangerous.
Exactly.
You would be smart enough to know that in that situation, don't stop, because that could equal your death like that. I mean,
Yeah.
she
But what
gets
made
it.
her stop? Just the eye contact, you're saying?
Yeah.
What
Well,
made her
didn't stop?
Or
What I-
didn't
stop, I mean.
she knew she was being followed, and
I
so
don't-
she said, "Don't."
Oh well, see, yeah.
Well, this is what I don't know. So that was I didn't
I don't
read
know.
that at all.
I don't know that she
I
thought
don't
she was
know
being
that.
followed.
I don't know that she. I don't know if he saw the tail and
I think
gave
he
her
did.
the eye,
I
or
think
she
so.
knew that she was being tailed.
That's what
and
I'm
gave him
saying.
the eye. I read it like he saw the
Yes,
tail,
I'm
and
with
she
you.
and he gave her
and
the
he's
eye.
like,
But
and he kept walking.
I saw him. It was a over the shoulder a shot on him making eye contact. They didn't know. Don't know that if she got that or not. That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I was
she
like,
did, because she kept
well,
walking.
right,
Right.
but in the moment, you don't see her
Right.
react. So you're like, oh, what's
And
she
the guy
gonna
in the
do?
window, the guy in the window saw it. He was like, he's hoping that they said he saw it.
Right,
So he's having,
right.
he's trying. He's
And
gonna
they
go.
don't have the like
No.
earpiece, so
I
they
really
can't.
honestly think that's just self-preservation. You know how dangerous what you're doing
course.
is.
Yeah.
You know that that's a trained FBI agent, and if he shakes his head like, bitch,
Yeah.
pardon me, lady, don't stop.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I didn't even see him
I'm not
signal
gonna
anything.
say-
I didn't see him shake his
I
head.
think
That's
that
what I'm saying.
she only would've stopped if he
look,
stopped.
I completely
Right.
agree with you,
I agree.
Roth. Of course, she's not
I
an
agree.
idiot, and she's not. I'm just saying what went down to make her know that. Of course, I don't think she did not know she was
He
being
texted
followed,
her.
and B, she did not really. He
Texted
did
her.
not really make a signal.
I think
saw a
if he
look of, like,
stopped-
terror on his face. I think yes. I think she was waiting for him. In my moment, that's what I was thinking. She was like, if he doesn't tell me to stop, then I don't even want to have this conversation with him anyway. So I'm just going to keep walking away.
Right. I mean, it was his
I
play.
don't think that she was like, I'm being followed and I have to walk by and I'm going to signal to him. No, hell no. She didn't know what the hell was going on.
That's a great
I'm sorry.
signal you just
I
did.
did not
I
like
know.
it.
I would-
But it's very interesting though, because every single person in this story has a side. and they, you know, whether it's an emotional thing or whether it's, you know, a job thing, we're straddling the fence between the story and emotional through the whole entire episode and through the whole entire season so far. And I think that's what makes this show so good. And we love to debate about it because there's so much to debate about, and we want to hear you, how American. If you go to iTunes and rate and comment.
If we were in Russia, we'd all be shooting each other.
Right.
So no debate. I win the debate.
But yeah, right.
Yet is my favorite word.
But since we're not, and we're in America, we would love to hear what you have to say. So go to iTunes and rate and comment and continue the conversation. Keep it going. Tell a friend. 5 stars is what we like over here.
5.
And
answers to our questions, or maybe some historical facts that we didn't cover.
We could be missing tons of things too. The show is chock full of things. So if there's anything,
I know everything.
Yeah, I mean,
one of our YouTube viewers actually wrote in about what that box was, that it was a transmitter. And thank you for that, because somehow we missed it.
See, so there's things that we love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much for, you know, listening and watching, and please
and almost calling.
Thank you for that caller. We don't know what happened.
And also, you can. What is everybody's Twitter? Because people can just tweet us live during the show, and I do that all the time and answer back during the show. What's your Twitter?
At Joe K. Braswell. At Joe K. Braswell.
At Jen the Geo.
And I am at Lauren Leonelli.
I'm at Roth Cornet, ROTHCORNET. I swear people maybe don't know what you just said.
Jen the Jew. Yeah, that's true. It's real. Jen the Jew.
You heard it right.
Jen the Jew.
It's not a joke. It's real.
She's Jen.
Follow.
She's a Jew.
Follow and tweet. Thank you very much. All right, well, I think we should probably move on to some little news and gossip, shall we?
Sure.
AfterBuzz TV News.
So now, as I said last week, there's never a ton of news surrounding this show other than it's on the air. And Carrie Russell was once a Mickey Mouse Club member.
Felicity.
And Felicity.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some of the things that are out there are just interviews with the cast. And recently, Carrie Russell did one about the fact that she is no longer a Mickey Mouse Club member and Felicity, and now she's on TV giving blowjobs. So
she did that for IGN.
Yeah, a bunch. I mean, I would assume that the questions are probably pretty similar. You know, what's it like no longer being squeaky clean?
Well,
it's like giving head.
You know, it's interesting. We talked about this too. We're so used to seeing Carrie Russell be like the meek, quiet girl, like in Felicity, or even in movies that she's been in. And here we get to see her be a badass, pull a gun out and shoot a security guard point blank in the head, and then cover the splatter with a little tissue thing. I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
So
so she is saying that she's enjoying, you know, not being so squeaky clean anymore and playing this alternate role. And she also won Best Hair for an award recently.
She does have good hair.
She has amazing hair. And that is why it was a travesty in Felicity when she cut it off. I'm sorry. That should have never happened. Killed the show when she killed her hair.
Jumped the shark when they cut the hair off.
Oh, yeah. But so speaking of some of the other characters in the show, Roth, you had some information about Matthew Rhys.
Fairly. You know, I spoke to him super briefly at the TCA's at like a cocktail party, and he said a lot of the things that we already know about how, you know, his character is going to continue to be conflicted as the season goes on, about how he is 100% committed to the family and she's an ideologue. We spoke about his experience of the Cold War. He's Welsh, which was also pretty interesting. But he did say this. He said that dynamic between them is going to be escalating to a huge confrontation by the end of the season. So I don't know what that means. We'll find out.
But we will maybe make some predictions about that.
What?
All right. Is that all for our news and gossip? Okay, well then let's move on to our predictions.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
Well, I have a prediction about Nina.
Do it.
I think when Nina met Stan in the car finally, and they had a little convo, and she alluded to the fact that she doesn't know for sure, but that she didn't think that the Russians were involved in this assassination attempt. I tend to pick up on some subtleties here, and in that situation, I picked up on a little ST. That's what we like to call sexual tension.
Oh.
And I think that...
Is that what we call it?
Stan, that's what we call it.
Little ST.
And I think that Stan was giving it off a little bit more than she was. He's in the position of power, and also we found out later that Stan and his wife don't have a very close relationship anymore, so I think that he could be a little lonely, and I think that only furthered my feeling of that little meeting in the car, and I totally think that Stan and Nina are gonna have the sex.
This is how people become multicultural. because then they mix. And then there are
Exactly.
little baby
And we're gonna have
Russian
a really-
Americans.
That's
And
right.
that's what makes the world go round.
That's
Exactly.
And it all starts with a little ST.
That's right.
It does start with ST.
does.
I agree. I will second that.
Thank you very much.
second that
Jen the
nomination.
Jew.
Oh, I have a prediction.
Okay, yes.
And I kind of said it earlier. So sorry,
go ahead,
Joe.
go,
I think
go.
I just keep stealing your
No, go,
lines.
go.
But I do think, as I said earlier, that there will be some conflict. Like you had also mentioned, Roth, that their relationship will get stronger, Elizabeth and Philip, and it will sort of be like a relationship versus country thing, where if their country screws up,
Yep.
it will, make them even closer and them against their country. And I feel like, when in conflict, you sort of, what is that? Not Stockholm syndrome, but you're like,
Oh, yeah.
everything's heightened.
Yes.
So their relationship
They're
will be heightened.
emotional.
Right.
and- Yeah, exactly. I agree.
I have to use my hands to say these things. I
me
can't
too.
get there otherwise.
For those of you listening, she's using her hands. For those of you watching, you can see.
Well, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah?
No, you go ahead.
My prediction is obviously very, very similar, but more specifically, I think that we're going to have some sort of showdown / confrontation continuing between Elizabeth and Philip. But I think it'll really come. I think it'll come through. I call him Claire Mags from, Margot Martindale. What's her
I
name?
love
Claudia.
her.
Yeah.
Mags.
I was going to call her Mags from Justified.
From Justified.
But yeah,
Granny.
Claudia, yeah, because Granny, who was great in this episode, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
She's great. But I think that
She has great one
Again,
lines.
another
She's
scene,
great.
another
Yeah.
great scene, another great still
between the
scene.
two women, kind of like I did this back in the day. I'd have your training, you'll be fine. But I think she's going to really come down with some orders that will sort of really conflict them.
Yeah.
both.
She is not to be trusted, by the way.
She's going to say, "I need you
Margaret
to do
Martindale,
something."
Yeah.
never.
I know,
Scary.
I know you can do this, Carrie Russell. You're gonna have to do this. Philip, not so much, but you and I are women. You can do
And
this.
I think that might have been a little manipulation happening
Yeah.
there, too.
I think
Absolutely. That's why
that's-
she went to her and not to him.
So we'll see.
When she said that if this goes down, you'll do well.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
you
so too.
will.
I think that they know because there are reports on him and she's made reports on him before. So they
Right.
know that Philip's a little shaky and they're trying to make sure she's still in the fold.
Right.
Exactly.
I have a very simple prediction that it's all about the relationships that the teenagers, that's going to start to play a more complex role as
How very
things-
Homeland.
I know, but
Yeah.
it is very Homeland. But I also liked what she said tonight about them looping the same scene over and over again. And though she apologized, and I understood why, because it seemed like she was being cavalier about it, there was something interesting about that, about media and
Right.
how that
Yeah.
started to change
Yep.
and affect things. So that made me wonder, maybe they're going to start to pepper in some of that about
Sure.
media too, and how that's affecting the Cold War and
And TV's
perception.
right around the corner.
But
around the
they are
corner.
right around the corner, but you're
Yeah.
predicting that the daughter and the next door neighbor boy son get together.
I am a little bit.
Well,
Well, I think they already are kind of like their
But
thing.
Oh, yeah.
They felt like they did tease something in that thing, which has to be relevant. The fact that his dad is Secret Service.
Right.
Yeah.
So that has to.
That has to be relevant, and then,
Has to
but
be
I
relevant.
also like my dual prediction is that the show will also.
How many predictions do you have here?
It's two.
You're only allowed one.
It's that the kids are getting together, and that the media, they're kind of the same,
They
and that the
are.
media will start to play more of a role. I hope so, because that's more interesting.
It
to me.
is, and and we'll get to see some fun little blasts from the past if they do that too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love seeing those clips because,
know.
obviously, some of us were very young then.
Yeah.
So to see it again as though it's happening, it's kind of
Yes.
like I'm learning even more
It makes
about
you
what
think-
already happened.
It makes you
You
think
just
about.
called me old. Like, yeah.
It was so not directed at you, but now it is.
It makes you think about what was going on behind the scenes in a real moment in time.
Yeah.
And it makes it very interesting. And that's why we love this show. And we love you guys for watching and tuning in. So thank you so much for doing that. And we have the band back together this week.
Yay, man.
So, like we said, please rate and comment us on iTunes, tweet us, and you can find me at Lauren Leonelli on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and my website.
You can find me at Jen the Jew on Twitter, Instagram, and JeniferGolden.com.
And
Oh, what?
your YouTube video.
Oh, and I'm also in the Women of LA YouTube video. In
Watch
case you
it.
haven't seen it, I don't know who you are that hasn't seen it.
800,000
hits.
That's right.
I have some videos from out. I have I went up to ILM. I have a piece on ILM, Star Wars, and Lucasfilm on Grantland.com, ESPN's Grantland.com. It
This guy.
premiered last Thursday. The next one airs tomorrow. Every Thursday, Grantland.com. And I'm also here the following and Justified and the show as
You're
well.
busy.
Nice.
And watch Extra because I'm there too. And
He's
that's
all
it.
over the place.
At Joe K. Braswell.
Yeah, I'm also on TV. I'm not on TV at all. You can find me on Twitter, though, at Roth Cornet, and you can find my work on IGN.com. If you like geek stuff, you will like IGN.
Yay for the geeks.
I'm a geek.
All right, we will see you guys next week. Bye.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff. We would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.